There is a secret rhythm, a flow that underlies all of combat sports. It is probably the simplest and the hardest thing to learn. It can make the difference between you being an okay fighter versus being a great fighter, an excellent fighter. But because most of us in HEMA don't come from a classical martial arts combat sport background, most of us were never formally taught this. Some of us might intuitively understand some of these concepts. What I'm going to teach you today is about how to formally recognize and take advantage of something called tempo.
Hi, my name is Acer. I am one of the Saber trainers at St. George's HEMA School in Tbilisi, in the Republic of Georgia. I have been in this sport for something like 10 years, both in sport fencing and also in HEMA. And I'm making this video series to go over some of the fundamentals in a more technical way for new people to this sport.
So you might have heard of tempo in the context of music. So in music, there's beats, like a metronome, and your body moves like that too. Your body is governed by electricity. Electricity moves in waves, up and down. Imagine for a minute a sine wave, where it goes up and it goes down and it goes up and it goes down. This is the way that your body works. This is the way that your movements move. This is how attacks go. And it's also, it should be the way that you should think about how to attack and defend and use blade work effectively. So this video is going to talk about four main aspects, four main concepts that underlie how we should think about how tempo is used in HEMA. We're going to talk about movement. We're going to talk about distance. We're also going to talk about blade work and then parries. And mixed in with all of that, I've included drills that I would recommend for practicing with your club for these specific skills. And I've also included some sort of explanatory video analysis using videos from another YouTube channel. So, for starters, you are here, you're in your on guard, you're bouncing a little bit, you're moving up and down. This is also a sine wave. When you are up, you don't have traction with the ground and you can't change direction very easily. So whenever there's bouncing, whenever there's up and down movement, at least probably 75% of the time, you are not actually firmly in contact with the ground. You can't control direction. You can't change until you hit the ground. This is a weakness. This is a huge weakness. Imagine if you're bouncing in front of somebody, only 25% of the time you are actually able to change direction quickly and defend yourself. If you're facing somebody who's bouncing, you want to be attacking into a point, into the period of time when they can't effectively defend themselves, or they can't change direction, control distance. There's another element, moving forward and backward. It's the same thing. In a forward movement, you extend your foot, move forward, until you've brought your back leg together and you've effectively recovered your on guard, you are not really able to attack effectively. Imagine you're here and then you have to do something, a lunge, that can work. But if you're bringing your foot forward, you have to go take a step back if you want to retreat. So this is the reason why one of the first things you're going to be taught if you're studying sword fighting or fencing is that you need to be taking small steps and you need to be staying really low. Small steps. They take your tempo. So imagine your tempo is, if you take small steps, you can more effectively defend yourself, move, and take advantage of another person's tempo if you're taking small steps. If you're taking big steps, it's really a weakness. So let's take this sine wave and put it sideways and talk about distance. So if you have two fighters and they have the same tempo, then the distance between them wouldn't change. So they would move forward and backward at the same time. But obviously, this isn't how people move. This isn't how our brains work. There's always a delay. So what that means is one person, one fighter will take a step forward, the other will take a step back. Another will take a step back, the other will take a step forward. Forward, back, back, forward. Whenever there's a movement between two fighters, there's always a leader and a follower. One person is always taking the initiative to change the direction, and then the other person is responding to that movement. Now, it can obviously switch. If you're in a position where you are moving, you're bouncing, it's going quickly, you can take steps, you play with the distance, trying to take the initiative from the other person in responding to your movements. But if they're moving backward and forward, and the other person is following your distance, what you can do is, take a step forward, they go back, take a step back, step back, step back, step back, and then you're pulling the other person because, for example, if there's a pattern, humans are pattern creatures. We like patterns. Forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, forward. You can trick the other person into taking a step toward you. Now let's take a look at a drill that you can use to practice using tempo to beat an opponent. Okay, so the way this works, come. I have Luca, my partner. So on guard, like this, there's going to be a leader and a follower. The leader is going to be moving, and you trying to follow. Yes. We're holding the mask. So hold the mask with one hand. Nope, like this. So you have to, nope, like.
Oh, okay.
We make it hard. So I'm going, I'm leading, and I'm pushing, and I'm pulling. And what I want to do is make you drop the mask. Good, yes. So the purpose of this drill, I'm pushing and I'm pulling. He's trying to keep the distance, and I'm trying to have him break the distance by losing track of my tempo. Now you lead.
Notice how much more effective it is to take quick, small steps rather than big, bouncing steps.
Yeah. I was taught that there's something like I don't remember what it was now, 3 milliseconds or something like that. But this is the reaction time, the average reaction time from between seeing something and your body reacting to it. It's quick, but it's not that quick. So if you are moving forward, moving backward, the other person is trying to match your tempo, to keep within an effective distance, just outside of an attack distance, but close enough where they are still engaged. What you can do is you can change the tempo, speed up or slow down. But as they're following you, and you can get them to come to you, then you, instead of taking a step back, you can just lunge directly into them. That's a very key, very basic element, very basic technique.
Let's take a look at another drill.
Okay, so the next drill, this is the same thing, but he is going to try to trick me into moving toward him by breaking tempo, breaking the pattern. And so when I follow him, he hopefully will catch me with a lunge while I am mid-step toward him or before I'm able to step back. So we're at a distance of just him being able to hit with one lunge. Yeah, easy. But I'm going to keep the distance and he's going to try to trick me. Okay, you ready? Okay, let's do this. No, I was too slow. So we've talked about movement and we've talked about distance control. Now let's talk about blade work. Imagine two boxers in a ring. One of them extends their arm in a strike towards the other boxer's face, but it comes up short. They miss. Now their aggressive action is essentially completed, and the opponent has the opportunity to strike them with a counter. So remember the sine wave. You can either be in attack or in a defend. Aggression, defensive. This is also a sine wave, but unlike the previous sine wave we were thinking about, movements up and down, in this case, you're moving from aggressive attack to defensive parry. With these two ends of the sine wave, imagine that they are the strongest. When you are fully attacking, you've committed to an attack, you're powerful. When you're committed to a defense, you are powerful. But often, if you attack and you miss, or you attack too short, now you have this whole period of time when your arm, your body are open, and then you need to defend yourself. Same way if you're moving from an attack into, or sorry, a parry into an attack, this is the time when you're weak, when you are unprotected. So if we said before that 75% of the time you were off the ground, you can imagine that about 50% of the time you are in danger and not particularly capable of defending yourself. Now this is all a little bit complicated. So in order to illustrate this, I've selected 3 clips that demonstrate tempo in aggressive and defensive action. These were uploaded by Josh from the False Edge HEMA. He's got a YouTube channel. Go check him out. And the first one shows a tempo fail. So Josh steps in with a big attack in super slow-mo, which is parried. He immediately transitions to a parry, but here's the mistake. He doesn't hold the parry long enough to catch the opponent's blade. He transitions into an attack in the wrong tempo, and the opponent then continues his original tempo and scores the point. Let's look at the next one. In this fight, Josh is facing a very aggressive fighter who thrusts a lot. And what helps him succeed is that Josh is extremely good at very, very fast transitions into the parry. This allows him to effectively increase his tempo in comparison to his opponents. So he's able to transition from that parry into an attack before the opponent is able to successfully recover into his own defensive stance. The point of all this is that you need to recognize that there is a tempo of attack and there is a tempo of defense, and that you need to be able to transition very, very quickly between those two. Another thing is in your blade work. Don't ever do an attack that you're not committing to. What I mean is that often someone will make a cut that is not close enough to the other person to be actually threatening. You want your attack, every attack, to be capable of hitting the person or capable of tricking them and provoking a response. But if you're not provoking response and you're not hitting them, you're just making yourself open.
There's one last aspect to talk about here, which is about how tempo affects parries.
So you are here in your on guard, and you need to parry. Imagine a direct attack is coming to your chest, to your center line. For the first half of the action, you are pushing your blade across your chest, pushing into that parry, across your chest, pushing into that parry, whichever direction the parry needs to be. But the first half of that motion, you are very strong. And as you approach the center line, you have the capability to stop the opponent's attack. But as soon as you cross that center line, if you have missed, for example, or if the opponent has withdrawn their attack, it was a feint. Now you have to make this whole long, very arduous effort to pull back to the correct parry. This is especially difficult with these heavy HEMA weapons. And that period of time is now when you are vulnerable. So again, there is a tempo of defense as well as a tempo of attack. And of course, this is a critical thing that we do in HEMA. That seems like half of the actions that we do are designed to trick your opponent into parrying in the wrong way or in the wrong direction so that we can take advantage of their error and hit them in the arm or hit them in the chest, hit them in the hand. It's very, very basic, it's very common, very, very useful.
Here's one final drill we can take a look at. In this one, the coach, the leader, is going to just pendulum back and forth a parry. And the trainee who's following that action needs to watch for the tempo and then thrust or perhaps cut into the period when the blade is passed or is now open. There's one other issue. You notice he's standing quite close. You can make it more maybe realistic by having the trainee start from a further distance, then have to take a step in and lunge in one attack action. And then another way to make it further more advanced would be to add in a dying strike after the thrust to force the trainee to also go immediately into a parry after the attack. It looks quite simple, and it is, but this is also a fundamental drill. It's teaching the fundamentals of movement and attacks in tempo. So that's all for this video. I apologize for any lingering audio issues. I had to reshoot a lot of it because of problems with my recording equipment. If you appreciated it, if you liked it, please let me know. Leave a comment. Your support is my motivation to keep making these kinds of videos, this kind of content. I'm not going to do the like and subscribe song and dance because I know that if you liked it, you'll like it, and if you want to see more, you'll subscribe. So thank you very much. Goodbye.